Hey guys, DMV SoloRider back with another video. We're on the FTR. And we are gonna ride around the Shenandoahs today. Hopefully my camera angle is okay. You know what, the way I sit on the bike, trying to be comfortable, not trying to posture myself in a certain way, sometimes I kind of cut off the screen here, and sometimes it comes out fine. So I played around with it. I think I got it. I'll check the footage and make adjustments as we go. But we are in Front Royal. We're gonna go do a ride I've actually done before on the channel. We're gonna do the Fort Valley and Thornton Gap run. It's kind of heads into the Shenandoahs for a stretch. You get some twisties on the way up, a lot of nice twisties and sweepers on the way down, and then some, you know, riding through mountain valleys. That's just beautiful. I think I already have that ride on my Google Drive page, so feel free to go download those GPS coordinates and pop them in whatever GPS device you're using. Today's ride isn't really about the ride. I mean, hopefully we'll catch some nice shots, have some fun in the twisties. I've had my 2022 Indian FTR R Carbon for just under a year, about 11 months. And while I'll be honest, I haven't put enough miles on it where I think it would be meaningful to do a review, I did want to share some of my kind of preliminary thoughts about this beautiful motorcycle. And I figured what better way to do it than while I'm taking a ride. When I put up my last Challenger video on this bike, doing my final thoughts at 30,000 miles, I told you I decided to swap the Challenger for an FTR because I don't have a lot of time to ride, and I have no time to do any sort of, you know, touring, long road trips, etc. And I figured I might as well try something new. You know, if all I'm going to be doing is getting short little rips around town, I might as well change it up. And in that sense, the FTR has been perfect. You know, it's fast, it's light, you just get on and go. No worried about the electronics. My iPhone or my electronics. The ultimate point I'm making is I've had this bike for 11 months and I have 2,524 miles on the bike, and 250 of that was just getting it home from the Pennsylvania dealership that I bought it from. Warhorse up in PA gave me a good deal on the Challenger, and they happen to have one of the last few brand new 2022s. But yeah, I mean, I when I ride, it's like around the Beltway, inside the Beltway, in the city. I actually ride in DC quite a bit just for a change of scenery. And you know, my rides are like, you know, an hour, maybe two. A ride like this where you've got to ride about 80 miles west of DC to Front Royal to then start the ride. This is as long as it gets. You know, I ride out west of the city quite a bit because Virginia is beautiful. They have a lot of fun roads. Oh shoot, gotta make a U-turn. Even on this, my U-turns suck. And you know, I'll be on this bike for an hour or so, maybe 2 hours. And then, you know, it's back home. And in the DC area, you can be out for a couple hours and not really cover a lot of miles. So yeah, you know, as far as, you know, the concept, the reason I decided to get the FTR, I don't have any complaints. You know, my schedule has worked out as expected. And I don't have a regret. I mean, I love the Challenger, I still miss it, but I don't regret trying something new. And so yeah, so even though I've, you know, only have about 2,500 miles on the bike, I've had it for 11 months, I don't think it would be fair for me to review the motorcycle like I've done with my last couple. But I, you know, at least wanted to share with you what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing, If you are thinking about getting a 2024 FTR, I mean, they're the same exact bike. The only thing that's changed since, I think, 2020 or 2021 is, you know, for the FTR, they changed the diameter of the front wheel, changed the suspension, lowered the bike a little bit, make it more of a purely a road bike as opposed to that like faux ADV concept they were going for based on the flat track racing theme. You know, the FTR Rally still has the original dimensions, original concept. I don't think I've ever seen a Rally on the road, but then again, I think I've only seen an R Carbon on the road once since they came out. And I live in a pretty big market. I think, what are there, 6 to 8 million people in the DMV? There's got to be a few FTR R Carbon owners other than me. But anyways, that's what we're doing today. I am going to try and save my thoughts for the twisties. But before we get there, at least let me talk about comfort. Bike is pretty damn comfortable, all things considered. You know, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I've got my issues. I'm pretty content with the FTR seating position. You know, it's an upright naked bike, basically. It's not a sport bike in terms of like a little Ninja or CBR. So you sit a little more upright if you choose. If you're flying down the highway at high speed, you're hunkered over. Haven't had any discomfort issues with my neck at all, which I'm really surprised by. I kind of was counting on that being part of the package, and it's been fantastic. I really can't explain it. The seat, very comfortable, nice and wide. You know, it's not a touring bike. It's not going to be plush, but I can be in the saddle for a couple hours if I need to without stopping and be okay. You know, usually when I'm out, if I stop, it's because I need to get gas. You know, a 3.4 gallon gas tank. This bike never leaves sport mode. I'm liberal with the throttle. So, you know, I fill up quite a bit. You know, I get, you know, about 40 miles per gallon, and I'm fine with that, given the way I ride it. You know, why did I choose the FTR? I think it's beautiful. I love the colorway. I love the design. Indian really knows how to design motorcycles, and, you know, when they first came out with the R Carbon, I just immediately loved it. When I rode the newest version of it, I think it's back in 2020 when I went up to that motorcycle show in Pennsylvania. Fell in love with the bike, was on it for a good stretch. And, you know, when you ride a cruiser all the time, a little bike like this, it's like just a whole different experience. You know, it's so light. It's not a light bike for what it is. It's 500 pounds, 550 pounds wet, something like that. You can go check out the specs on Indian's website. But when, you know, you've been riding baggers for 4 years, 3.5 years, whatever it is, it's just a total difference. When you're flying down the road and you're just weaving in and out, it's so nice. So I love the look of this bike. This was my preference. This is the bike I preferred to get, but it's really expensive. You know, even a 2022, when I bought it in September of 2023, there was no discount. The MSRP was the original MSRP. Indian happened to have some promotions, so I got a good, you know, I got a discount on the bike. But mostly, I had equity in the Challenger. I rolled that over into this bike, so I got this bike for basically the same price as an MT-09 SP. And if I hadn't been able to do that, I probably would have gotten an MT-09 SP. I rode that bike at Back of the Dragon, absolutely loved it, had a great time on that bike. You know, the quick shifter is amazing. The engine feels great. You know, it's ugly as sin in my opinion, but, you know, for $12,000, all the tech you get on that bike compared to an $18,000 Indian FTR, you'd be a fool not to get the MT-09 SP. I didn't worry about it because I had all that equity, so I got this bike for, I think it was $12,500. You know, financially foolish. I could have had the, you know, assuming I got the same amount on my Challenger from a Yamaha dealer, I could have had a, you know, $4,000, you know, a $8,000 Yamaha. But, you know, it is what it is. I can tell you, every time I park the FTR, it's that bike that you always turn around and look. Now, I can say that about all my Indians. I'm sure if I had an MT-09, I'd say it about the MT-09 too. All right, this is the beginning of the ride. not right off the bat. Bike's got all the power in the world. Never leaves you lacking for power. One thing about this ride we got to be careful about is there's always gravel. And I got a bunch of blind curves, so I'm not going to fly into a blind curve at 80 miles an hour. I think one thing with the FTR, you know, it revs really high. Much higher than the Challenger or the Chieftain or my old Scout. Oh, gravel. And that's still something that takes a while to get used to. You know, the amount of miles I've spent on the bike are pretty light. So I still think I'm still getting used to the bike. But, you know, I'm at 4,500 RPMs in third gear right now. And this bike is a whole different experience when you're like past 5,000 RPMs. Like on any bike I've owned so far, once you're up in the revs like that, you got what it's got to give you. And this bike, like if I was on 66 heading back to DC and I twisted the throttle at 5,000 RPMs, it would have a ton to give you. Just different. And so, you know, when you're riding twisties like this, my guess is you probably want to really be in like second gear around here, because the bike lean angle is so much more than anything I've ridden. You could take these curves at 70, I mean, easily on this bike. I'm not doing it because, you know, that's not me. I didn't get this bike to be a cruiser, but I'm not, you know, I'm not rushing out to get metal knee pads. And again, one thing you got to remember on roads like this, your bike can perform amazingly. It doesn't mean the cars around you can. And I've been down here a number of times. I've had cars crossing the yellow. And I'm recording. I'm not 100% focused on the road, so we'll just do what we do. But I mean, I've never dragged my pegs on this bike. I certainly don't plan to. It's not a goal of mine. And I'm blown away by the engine. As I understand it, like I talked about when I test rode the 2025 Scout, I think this engine is just the original Scout engine retuned for this bike, but it feels 1,000 times different. And in fact, now the engine in the 2025 Scouts feels just like this. Like that Scout 101 feels like riding an FTR, just looks different. That's all. It had plenty more there. Plenty more. And, you know, again, never having owned a sport bike of any kind, and having only owned V-twins, I don't know if bikes like this typically have tons of engine braking, or if it's because it's a V-twin from a cruiser that they've modified. It still has that legacy cruiser feel. But the engine braking on this bike is significant. It's exactly what I love from all the motorcycles I've owned so far. And I find myself, you know, I brake more on this bike because I head into curves faster than on my past bikes. But I still find myself relying a bit more on engine braking than pure braking. I don't know if I'm riding this bike right, if I'm making a fool of myself. I have no idea. The one thing I've always been honest about is I only have the experience I have. I'm not trying to pretend I'm an expert. Okay, these guys might be cramping my style a bit. Lots of gravel. Whew. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the engine and the power. Just loads of power, and just aided further by the size of the bike. So light, so capable. In terms of the suspension, you know, it's got the adjustable front forks, it's got adjustable rear shock, all Öhlins. The best thing I can say about these shocks is they look badass on this bike. But I've never felt the need to adjust them. You know, I'm probably pushing 200 pounds at this point. All this lack of riding means I'm sitting on my couch working and eating. You know, I know I should go and weigh myself and kind of set the suspension, play around with it, see how it is different at different settings. But honestly, the suspension's good. It's not too firm over big bumps. It's not too soft. It feels really good to me, and I just haven't felt the need to play with it. I have never had any traction issues. You know, obviously, you know, I said I've never dragged the pegs. I'm not trying to. I'm not a sport bike rider. I'm like these guys, you know. I'll take curves faster on this than I ever would on one of my cruisers, but you know, it's for me, it's what I'm comfortable with. When I've dragged pegs on the Challenger or any of my other bikes, I didn't enjoy that feeling. I think I've mentioned on the channel, I have this fear that I'm going to hit like a crack in the pavement. It's going to flip the bike over, you know, when the little peg scraping knob hits it, and I'm just not interested. And for those of you who have been longtime viewers, you're not here because you want to watch a daredevil. I certainly don't worry about it for filming videos. And I don't think we have to worry about it today unless these guys break off. It's a popular ride. But I have never, ever been up here where I've seen this many motorcycles. Certainly not a big group ride like this. But good for them. It's a great road. Here, I'll put the map up on the screen so you can see it. But yeah, you know, the suspension feels really nice. When I've leaned over in corners more than what I'm doing here, never had an issue in the world. I've never felt the wheel breaking loose, nothing like that. I think, God, I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen the traction control flare up. I really haven't done any riding in the rain. But, you know, just really satisfied with it. Again, you know, why am I not filming a review? I mean, at 2,500 miles, you know, I haven't ridden enough different types of roads, different types of environments to really have a final thoughts about any of it. You know, I mean, I can't imagine that 10,000 miles from now, the engine would not still sing to me. But, you know, maybe, you know, different type of riding, some different rides. The suspension, I would have additional thoughts for you. I don't after 2,500 miles. As far as the range of the bike, I mentioned 3.4 gallon gas tank. Gets about 40 miles to the gallon. I mean, the bike's always in sport mode, so my gas mileage is probably as bad as it gets. You know, if I put it in rain mode on the 80 miles out here, I'm sure I'd get better gas mileage than I did, but I just don't care. But yeah, I mean, 3.4 gallon tank is small. You know, the Challenger had a 6 gallon gas tank. I'd fill up every couple hundred miles. This, I'm filling up every 100, 120 miles. It's got a fuel gauge. It also warns you when it's getting low. I mean, basically this bike, you can get 120 miles reliably before you're looking for a gas station. But, you know, that last 20 miles of gas, you know, you should get 140 to a tank. I wouldn't dig into it. I also find, and this is one big criticism of this bike, I don't know if it's the way the gas tank is or the gas receptacle. I don't think this is actually a tank. I think this is the airbox. Gas tank is underneath the seat. But it's hard to get it full. You know, if you just put the gas thing in and set it it'll click out at about 2.5 gallons. And filling it up all the way is like a never-ending experience. You're trying to put as little gas as possible while still keeping it flowing to get it to rise up without overflowing. And that's 75% of the time you spend filling the tank is that part of the process, that last, half gallon. You fill it up and then it settles down. You fill it up, it settles down. It's really annoying. I put these bar end mirrors on. I'm still good with them. I think they look great. I think, I put them on once I had, I think, about 500 miles on this bike. And if they were a little larger, I'd be a little happier. I think the bar end mirrors they put on the new Scouts are perfect. If they make them for this bike, I would probably go and get a set for, $500 or something stupid like that. Stylistically, though, these are great. Exactly what I wanted. Minimal, round, bar end, done. And they were free for me, so I have no complaints. Put my quad lock on here, got my phone on my bars. Works fine. My phone always works. Cruise control on the bike works like a charm. And as I mentioned on my Scout videos, it's the same switchgear. The FTR switchgear is the same thing they put on the new Scouts. Transmission's fine. It's solid, reliable, clicks right into place, no issues whatsoever. Because you're riding this bike at much higher RPMs than a cruiser, at least the old Scout, the Challenger, the Chieftain. I guess there's sometimes I'm downshifting at really high RPMs and I'm like kind of worried. I don't want to put too much pressure on the transmission, but I mean, I just ride the bike, it's fine. Haven't had any issues. Beautiful. One other thing, when you're riding at those higher RPMs, you definitely get some vibration in the bars. I don't need to be in 4th gear right now, but I am because just slightly more comfortable for sustained speeds. Technology, the screen works fine. It's just, basic info. It's a touch screen. You can change the look. I like this one better. You can connect your phone with Bluetooth or with the USB, which is what I do. You can turn traction control on or off. You can set the dim of the screen automatically, which I do, and you have your modes: rain, standard, sport. Like I said, it's always in sport. Occasionally on the highway I might pop it into standard. The only thing, aside from the gas tank, that I can really complain about this bike is, as much as I love the engine, there are times when you feel a lurchiness to it. Frequently, and again, mostly in sport mode, you're on the highway, you're going 80 miles an hour, and you're just going, You'll feel a lurchiness to it. That's just weird. Yeah, we're heading up the mountain here. Five miles. Whew. We did it at 18. I'll take it. DMV SoloRider for the win. Well, there's a little stopping area up here. Hopefully it's not crowded and get a nice picture. But anyway, so there's a lurchiness to the engine at sometimes. It's not all the time. If you're giving it gas or rolling on or off the throttle, this is not something you experience. It's just at a steady speed. It's kind of weird. Not really sure what it is. I think it's probably the tune, the ride-by-wire throttle. I know others who own this bike have had that experience. Has not bothered me enough to really dig in and figure out, okay, what is it? What do I need to fix? Another switchback. Oh, this is, I think, the parking area. Yeah, oh, it's full. Oh, I wish I could get in there. It's pretty. We'll try somewhere else. Guy with a boat? A boat? Really? Who's coming up here with the boat? Oh, here's the motorcycle group. Shoot. Although with the boat, I don't think it matters. Oh, so yeah, so there's the gas tank is annoying. The lurchiness in the engine at steady speed on the highway is annoying. I wish the exhaust was a little louder. In terms of power and performance, there's nothing about this bike I am dissatisfied with, so you're not going to see me changing the exhaust for an extra 3 horsepower or something ridiculous like that. But I would consider changing it for the sound. Something a little louder. Some popping and crackling would be sweet. But, you know, again, not something I've felt the need to rush out and do. There are a number of third-party manufacturers with exhaust for the FTR. Can't say I have my eyes set on any one of them. Something a little more streamlined than the big cans on this. Although I think they look good for the bike. It's just, you know, I want to hear my engine more while I'm riding. It's not for anything else. Well, so that was, you know, this is like the third switchback in this little stretch of the road. Got 12 minutes till we hit the next marker. We'll kind of head down through some valleys, and then we'll head up another mountain and down another mountain. The next mountain we go up and down will be, I think, 2 or 3 lanes. It'll be a faster ride. At least, you know, faster in my world. You guys might be laughing, I don't know. Faster than this motorcycle group, I'll tell you that much. Whew. The next mountain is good enough where they could actually set up a photographer like they do at Tail of the Dragon or Back of the Dragon and take some sweet photos. I should do some research and see if anyone does that and announces a schedule. Got to get me some glamour shots on my FTR. So I've been on the bike for a few hours today, you know, getting out here, riding down into Front Royal, first part of this ride. Stopped once for gas, stopped once to rig up the helmet with the camera and the mic. My butt's a little sore, you know, a little achy. But, I mean, I'll tell you right now, not as bad as it was on an Indian Scout. My 2019 Scout, not as bad as it was on the god-awful seat on my 2019 Chieftain. Oh, that seat still ranks as the worst seat on the planet. It's just like sitting on a sawhorse the wrong way. You fellas know what I mean. At some point, I am going to film my fit on the bike and show that to you guys, because that's always important. So here we are in a friendly neighborhood parking lot. I wanted to show you my fit on the bike. As I mentioned, I'm 5'5", 5'6", 5'7" on my license. I have a 29-inch inseam, and these boots have about a 1-inch sole. So I'm working with 30 inches right now. The seat height on the FTR is 30.7 inches. So as you can see, about 0.7 inches less than the seat height. I got both tips of my feet on the, on the ground. It's the tips of my boots. If I want to just put one foot down, ball of my foot firmly on the ground, not a problem. Same thing on the other side. If I want to get a flat foot, not a problem. You just lean over a little more. I would say the main consideration with this bike for shorter riders is, are you comfortable with the weight? Are you comfortable shifting back and forth in your seat? Having ridden baggers for almost 4 years, there's nothing about this bike that is difficult to deal with or makes me uncomfortable. It's about 500 pounds, maybe 525 wet. So it's, 75 to 100 pounds heavier than other bikes in its class, like the MT-09. For me, it just isn't an issue. Like I said, riding baggers for 4 years, this is light. So it's really just going to depend on your experience and your comfort level. But as I've discussed on the channel and other videos, you know, seat height really shouldn't be a barrier to riding a motorcycle. And just like that, we're on the National Mall. You're gonna have to forgive me, no footage from going up and over the next mountain. At some point, I got plastered by a huge bug that covered my camera lens with guts, and I just didn't notice when I was swapping batteries. And the footage is terrible, it's just all cloudy. But you know, video's probably longer than I intended already, so we can get some more mountain footage another day. And I'm trying to remember all the points that I went over already, because I filmed that video a week ago. I think I had basically said hadn't had any trouble with the FTR, and I actually need to revise that. A few times, a handful of times, I've been coming into a slow, gentle stop just like this, and the engine is cut out. You know, clutch is in, wasn't an issue of stalling from, you know, driver error. Just shut off. One time it happened at speed, probably about 50 miles an hour on, you know, pretty busy road. But again, that's been, you know, a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times. So when I get the bike serviced, you know, I'll ask them to check it out. I'm not particularly alarmed. God forbid you're riding and you lose power, you just pull over. You know, the bike doesn't get an oil change but for every 10,000 miles or 1 year. So, you know, the end of September, beginning of October, I'll get the oil changed. I'll have a dealership check it out, see if there's anything wrong. And another issue that I neglected to mention, something that's really new to me but not new to a lot of other motorcyclists: chain cleaning. This bike has a chain. All my bikes before this had belts. And, you know, aside from when the belt would get a little out of whack and would make a squealing noise, you'd have to get it adjusted. For the chain, you're supposed to clean it every 500 miles. You know, I'm probably like every 600 or 700. It's just a big pain in the ass, to be honest. I can't stand it. It doesn't take a lot of time, but, you know, if you're really busy and you only have one day off, and, you know, you haven't cleaned your chain in 600 or 700 miles, you know, for me, I'm a little OCD, so if I'm supposed to do something every so often and I don't do it, it makes me feel a little off. So it can really screw up your day off. It's just a pain in the butt. I got one of those stands to prop the bike up. That's fine. But, you know, you get your cleaner everywhere, you get your lube everywhere. As far as I know, my chain is doing fine. I guess I'm doing all right. I have no idea. Hasn't snapped. But those two things are really, you know, the only things I can complain about, really. But anyways, those last 2 points are what I wanted to say about the bike. I just filmed here's my fit on the bike, so we'll slice that in here. But hopefully you've appreciated my thoughts on my 2022 Indian FTR R Carbon. Awesome little bike. Really happy with it. Wish I had more time to ride it. I don't know if y'all can see me, but y'all stay safe out there. DMV SoloRider is out.